My name is Dr. Johnson Iyilade, and I want to welcome you to another Glomacs Tech Talk session. In today's session, I'll be talking about data governance. Data governance. Now, like we said, data is one of the most powerful assets modern businesses and organizations have at their disposal. It's an important asset that they have. So, but while it can lead to meaningful insights, it can also lead to a lot of incorrect and misuse of the data. So when data is leveraged incorrectly, it can expose an organization to significant liabilities and even punishment. Okay, so organizations need to have a clear data governance policies and protocols in place. They need to have a kind of system set up in place to govern how their data is being used, who can have access to it, and how that data is going to be used. So that is the work of a data governance. So what is data governance? Data governance is a framework, is processes, is practices, best practices that an organization use for formally managing their data asset. Because it's an important asset, it's not everybody that needs to have access to it. Because it's an important asset, you need to set up a governing rule to communicate to people what can be done with the data, what cannot be done with the data. So there are so many reasons why data governance is important, especially in organizations. So because the goal is to ensure that the organization's data is one of high quality, accurate, and secure. Okay, so the organization need to ensure that they protect it because data is an important asset that they have. So why is data governance important? I will share 7 tips. Number 1, it's because it gives the businesses more confidence to make data-driven decisions because it establishes, when you establish clear data governance protocols, it allows the organizations to have more confidence in its data accuracy. So when you have a very clear and useful data governance, it helps the organization to trust the data because they are going to be making decisions on the data. So it helps them to be confident in making data-driven decisions. Number 2 thing is that it also makes it easier to comply with industry regulatory requirements. So there are regulatory requirements in different industries, whether it's banking, whether it's healthcare, whether it's academics. There are regulatory requirements on what can be done on the data, what cannot be done with the data. So when they set up a data governance structure, it helps the organizations to actually comply with the industry regulatory requirement. Number 3, it also leads to increased value to customers. So being able to point to the various components of your data governance, okay, practices can help you build customers' confidence in your product and services. So this is very important because you are able to come up with a very clear structure that defines what you are doing with the data, and customers can trust you with that, and you can also add value to the customer because you are very clear on what value you can present to the customer from your data. Number 4, it can also lead to increased data efficiency within the organization. Now, one common problem that is faced by many organizations without data governance rule and practices is there is a lot of duplicate data that is not necessary, or there are multiple versions of the same data set or file that exist in the organization. And that can bring a lot of confusion with people that are using the data. So when organizations take time to actually establish this data governance rule, what it does is it makes sure that the data is very efficient within the organizations, and it sets the rules for how to handle the data and how to treat them and how we can remove all the duplications that are in the data. So that is another benefit of data governance. Number 5 is that it leads to greater internal accountability. So having a clearly defined data governance rules and practices, it makes it easier for an organization to hold its employees accountable for their actions. So it makes it, because people are clear of what they can do and what they cannot do. So it makes them to become very accountable. So if an employee accesses data they shouldn't be handling or breaks the organization's data rules, then there is a clear means of identifying the issues and remedying them, because they have a data governance structure that defines what they can do and cannot do. Number 6 is that it increases also business transparency. So when you have a data governance structure and practices in place, it becomes much easier to be transparent with internal and external stakeholders that you are working with. Okay, that is very, very important. Also, number 7, which is the final one, is that it lowers the cost of other areas of data management. So, for example, if you are using the data within your organization for the wrong purpose, or if your customers' data is being hacked, there is a lot of data breach that can occur, and which can decrease the chances of remediation in the future. So when you have a very good data governance, it protects your data and it put together a very good data management structure. So these are some of the benefits of data governance. So now let's talk about 4 essential data governance framework. Okay, 4 essential data governance framework components. So when we are talking about data governance, what are the 4 essential frameworks that you must put into consideration in the organization? Number 1 is data quality. Number 1 is data quality. That is, when you are thinking about data governance, look at the data quality. So how complete, how accurate, how trustworthy is the organization's data? What processes can be implemented to ensure that it is of highest possible quality? You don't want to put garbage in to get garbage out. How the data quality, you set a standard for your data quality. That's part of your data governance principle. Okay, what safeguards can be put in place to identify, clean up, and remove low quality data? These are governance rules that you can set. Governance rules that you can set for all the organizations' data, so that you set a benchmark for the kind of quality of data that your organization is going to have. Number 2 thing that is also important in data governance is data security. That is, what action can your organization take to ensure the data is only accessible to people that are approved for access to the data? What type of encryption, maybe activity monitoring, multi-factor authentication, access control, and other security measures can you put in place to protect the data from malicious actors? So data security is an important part of your data governance principle, to ensure that you have a lot of security management system in place to ensure that the data is protected, because it's an asset that you don't want to be vulnerable with. Number 3 is data privacy. Okay, so the data privacy ensure that you keep the confidentiality. Okay, because people are sharing sensitive information with you, so you keep the confidentiality of the information. So what action can you take as an organization to ensure that individual rights to privacy is respected and protected? How does this impact the way your data is collected, processed, handled, stored, and used? These are governance rules that you have to set in place to ensure that you are meeting that data privacy requirement. Okay, what laws or regulations must the organization be mindful of when establishing its framework and workflow? Because in every organization, there is an industry requirement that you must follow, which is very important for you to have as a compliance. Otherwise, you will be penalized. So data privacy is also an important requirement for data governance. Finally, is data stewardship. Data stewardship. So you must have somebody that is responsible for data governance. So that is the steward of your data, who is responsible for overseeing the organization's data processes to ensure data governance occurs. Usually in organizations, they have a data governance manager or director. So in those areas, what the person is looking at is to oversee how the data is being used, how it's meeting the requirements that the organization has set. So when you have data governance, it is very key to also have a data steward. That is somebody that will be overseeing the organization's data processes. I hope this tip helps you. If it helps you, please feel free to share it so that others can also benefit. I look forward to talking more on our next video.